My friends, I just got a new bike and I've been tweaking it and inventorying it and taking notes on this new bike. And I figured this is something that everybody could do and should do with their own bike. I've got all these little tweaks and I'm gonna share them with you. Now that we can do a little spring cleaning on our bikes, we got a little time on our hands. Here's the things I do when I get a new bike. The first order of business is starting a new note in my phone. I like to use the Notes app. It syncs to the cloud. I can look at it on my laptop. There are a million different ways you can do this. Pen and paper is totally fine. You have to do it in a way that you will be able to find it and get to it and easily be able to look through it. If you put it on some new application that you've never used before, that's worthless. You got to do it somewhere you're going to be able to use it. So one of the benefits of using the Notes app on my phone, I can insert photos into the notes. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take a bunch of photos of the serial numbers of my various parts. My fork, my shock, my frame, anything that has a serial number and is very expensive to replace. Who was in charge of stamping this? What the hell? Serial numbers are great because if your bike gets stolen and the cops recover it, you can prove that that was your bike and you're not just making it up. Now, if your bike gets stolen and it's not recovered, sometimes you can put a claim into insurance, whether it's your auto insurance, your home insurance, whatever insurance you may have, and they will actually replace the bike. But you need to have a good list of parts and how much money you spent on your bike. I built a spreadsheet in Google Spreadsheets in the cloud, mostly so you guys could look at the parts on my bike and what I'm running, but it also serves as a perfect backup to see exactly what I bought and what's on my bike. When my bike got stolen back in 2016, I filed a police report and then I put a claim into my homeowner's insurance. And the crazy thing was, I bought that bike in 2012 on a coupon, but homeowner's insurance has to pay you replacement, like the current market value of what you would get today, not what you spent back then. So if I spent 3,000 bucks on that bike back in the day, maybe 4,000 on the Yeti SB66, the replacement bike was like the Yeti SB6, which was now $6,000 all of a sudden. So I got very lucky that the homeowner's insurance works that way. I use Strava for every single ride. I love seeing the dates, the times. I love seeing the mileage. I just love geeking out on the data. One really cool feature of Strava is that you can add in your bike and then add in your components. So if you get new tires, if you get a new chain, if you get a new drivetrain, and like me, if you got a new bike, you can add in every single one of those components, and then as long as you're keeping track on Strava of your rides, you will see how many miles those components have racked up. I've always known Strava had this feature, but this was the first time I actually remembered to get in there, to add all the components. And now if I break a chain, if I go down on a tire, I'll know, okay, those tires only lasted 150 miles. Oh man, that chain only lasted 50 miles. As long as I remember to go back into Strava and change the components out every time I switch something or break something. And I know there's a lot of hate for Strava, but just keep your rides private. If you want to save the data, if you want to know how far you've gone, if you want to know how much wear is on your specs, you can always keep your stuff private and not share it with the world. The next thing I would do with a new bike is go on to your manufacturer's website of whoever made your bike and get into the instruction manual, download it as a PDF, screenshot it, do whatever it takes, because there's a lot of good information on the IBIS website for the Ripmo. It's all there on the website already, but I am still gonna screenshot some of the things like torque specs. It says, okay, 10 Newton meters here, 5 Newton meters here, all these little things where you just want to be able to easily load them up on your phone. Maybe you're out of service, so you don't have to go to the website and start digging through. If you have it in your Notes app on your phone, you know where it is and you can get to it quick. Now we're gonna move on to suspension setup. Once again, once you get your PSI and your fork and your shock, once you get the number of clicks that you really like, write those things down in your Notes app. Just be very diligent about keeping stuff in the Notes app, because if you have to take your bike apart or travel or take air out of it, or you change something, you're like, oh man, what was it? How many clicks did I have? If you like it, if you like your setup, write it down. I have a RockShox Lyric front fork on my bike, and then I have a coil shock on the back, which doesn't require much setup. But for the front fork, RockShox has this Trailhead app where you put in the serial number, you get in there, and you can see, okay, here's the default setup. And I did the default setup, and it was fantastic on my first ride, so I'm leaving it alone for now. Definitely check out your bike manufacturer first to see if they have any default suspension tune stuff. Ibis for the Ripmo sells Fox as their default suspension kits, and they have a whole setup list of all kinds of stuff for Fox suspension with that bike. But if your frame manufacturer doesn't have that, then you can always go to the suspension manufacturer website, and nowadays more and more of them have little default setup stuff to give it a try. Now here's where we get into the good stuff. Okay, we've all been there where we took our handlebars, we took our stem apart, you took your seat post out, and then you try to put it back and it just doesn't feel like it's in the right position. One thing you should do if you like your setup right here, right now, you should mark it. There are many different ways to mark things. You could use a felt marker, you could use a tip of a nail to kind of scratch something through so it's there. If you like that, it's a little more permanent. I bought this little 1/8 inch thin tape from Amazon, and it's kind of funky tape, but once you get it on there, it's easy to tell, okay, the saddle height is this high, this is the way the direction of the saddle goes, because you just mark these two pieces of tape. Well, you mark one piece of tape and then you cut the tape so it becomes two pieces, so you can easily take your seat post out, work on it, put it back in, and then be able to line up those two pieces of tape with each other, and you're so golden. And then you just mark and tape everything that moves around, your handlebar position, even your stem position. You can do it so you don't have to mess with, oh, is my stem straight? If you just get it straight one time and mark it, you're good to go. Your levers, your brake levers, okay, how far in were they? How rolled up and down were they? If you've got those pieces of tape, they are marked off and they are good. The next thing that I believe is totally mandatory when you get a new bike or you change up components, order extras, order backups of the things you know are going to get worn out or break. Order new brake pads, for sure. Always have 2 sets of brake pads ready to go just in case you need them and you're out on the trail. It sucks so bad to be like, okay, now I have to order something because maybe the bike shop doesn't have this special type of 4-piston XT brake pads when you're wandering around Spain looking for pads and like, no, I bought the wrong ones. I've heard that happens before. Tires as well, they're expensive, I know, but just to have them on hand and ready, it's a huge weight off of my shoulders personally. I just love knowing, okay, I've got some tires back in the van, whatever happens, happens, I'm fine. And derailleur hangers. You cannot have enough derailleur hangers. My bike that just got shipped out already had a bent derailleur hanger from either coming or going back and forth because I shipped it around and trucked it around. So I already had to take off my derailleur hanger and put on a new one. Luckily the Ripmo, it's all the same from the previous generation to this generation. No big deal. But you know what? They're gonna get bent, they're gonna get chewed up. Get 2 or 3 of them ready to go. The next thing I would do with a new bike is to add frame protection. Now this is a rabbit hole of all rabbit holes that can waste so much time, but hey, you know, maybe you got a little extra spare time on your hands right now and you could spend 7 hours in your garage installing InvisiFrame or one of those similar pre-cut things. I'm not all about that. I hate it so much. So I just buy 3M tub tread. It's like anti-slip in the shower stuff. And it's pretty easy to put on. I still have a few bubbles in it. It kind of looks a little crappy if you get up too close, but this stuff is so tough. It is rock solid. You can bang your bike on some rocks and this will protect it pretty good. You know, it's not 1000% foolproof, but I really like having this protection on my bike. It's also cheap and it's very simple. I think one roll is 16 bucks on Amazon. It fits on the down tube perfectly. I put it on the lower chainstay stuff. I put it inside where the tires always kick up rocks. There's a lot of places on my bike, I know because I had the previous Ripmo, of the damage zones, so I'm trying to keep it nice enough to not go through the paint and not get chewed up. But inevitably, my style of riding, the bike's gonna get chewed up a little bit. The other mandatory piece of protection is a chain guide and a bash guard. I was so lazy about putting those on my bike until months later, I finally got one on, and I'm so glad because it saves so much damage. I cracked my bottom bracket so many times once I put that guard on, and I was like, oh God, I hear that sound and I know it's just the plastic getting hit and it's not my frame blasting into 1,000 pieces. And if you're not so mechanically inclined, make sure you get a good mechanic to put this on, especially for the Ripmo. There's a lot of really tight, tiny tolerances where there's a linkage and then the chain guide and it's way too close and I don't even know how it works without hitting, but Mine is set up pretty good. The guys at Worldwide Cycle Re put mine on and it doesn't look like it's rubbing or anything. Yeah, get a trusted mechanic to put that thing on. And the final thing that I do when I get a new bike is I hop into the MTBR forums. So this is a place online where people are gathering and talking about your model of your bike. So if you hop onto the IBIS forum on mtbr.com, you're gonna see hundreds of people discussing the Ripmo, and you can see people who have had issues, how they've solved those issues, people recommending different parts, like, oh, this part doesn't quite work on it, but oh, this one does. And it's a really, really good resource. But it can also be the most dangerous rabbit hole you will ever go down, because somebody's gonna say, this is the best bike ever, I've never ridden anything good, and then, oh, this is terrible, I couldn't get it to work. If you're using it to decide what bike to buy, it is rough. It's very rough. You're just gonna get torn back and forth and back and forth. If you want to decide what bike to buy, you need to get a demo, you need to ride it yourself and then feel it yourself and feel good about it. Going onto an internet forum to try to decide what bike to buy is, oh, it's terrible. It's not a good idea. Even though we've all done it and I did it back in the day for sure, just don't. But there are many benefits to the forums and finding out things. I know even with my car, I go to like a car forum and it's like, yep, this is a known issue for the RAV4, or this thing jingles and here's how you fix it. And it's like, whoa, awesome. People have already suffered and you can be the beneficiary of their suffering. Okay, I guarantee there's something I missed. What are some of the things you do when you get a new bike? I hope you guys can put some of these little tips to the test. Test to the tips. Put the tips to the test. Whatever it is, however you want to say it, let me know in the comments if you got a few things that you like. Otherwise, thanks for watching, you guys. I'll see you on the trail.